So thank you so much for coming and helping us with understanding some of the past wars that you've been in and understanding your service as a veteran. We just wanted to start off with some basic background information, if you don't mind. Where were you born?
In Chillicothe, Ohio.
Ohio. And I understand you grew up in Wilton, is that correct?
Well, not really. I grew up in Ohio.
Oh, you did grow up in
Pretty
Ohio?
much. I didn't come, I moved from Ohio to New Canaan in 1960 and lived there for 7 years, and then we moved to Wilton where we live now. One house over the line. We didn't make much point in moving, really.
So did you go to high school in Ohio, or?
I did that. I went to Cleveland Heights High School. Yeah.
And what was your daily routine like in high school when you were growing up? Were you like involved in any sports or extracurricular activities?
Well, I was on the swimming team. I was a cheerleader because we didn't have girl cheerleaders in those days. I never actually was on an athletic team other than the swimming team, but I did take as one of my courses that was required. I took a course with a bunch of coaches. I mean, a bunch of guys that became coaches, I should say. A very, very distinguished group of guys, which they call, I've forgotten what they call them, but anyhow, they've all been. If I could bring the names up on my screen, you'd recognize almost all of them.
That's great. When it came to preparing a future, how did you decide what you wanted to do later on in life?
Well, I think my father had been a cartoonist during World War I. That was probably one start. And I began cartooning when I was in high school, and we called it a newspaper. It really wasn't a newspaper. It was a major piece that about this big that had cartoons and a lot of information in it. Mostly stuff that, was about so and so was doing something to so and so. That was basically what it was. But I did that for a long while, and when after the war, I had started in college, but I went back to college and I did the the magazine, they would call it, and I've just gone on and on and on. I mean, I ended up as an art director and finally creative director of several major ad agencies in New York City eventually. So I mean, it's always been sort of one line. That's where I was going.
So going back to the theme of your high school cartoons, was there like a specific type of theme or was it just about really the environment that the high school was like?
Just nutsy stuff that didn't make a bit of difference to anybody really, except I did get kicked out of school once for doing something. I don't remember what it was, but it must have been pretty bad.
Why did you choose to go into the Air Force?
Well, I was in college when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. I enlisted the next day, and I did it because I wanted to go into the it wasn't the Air Corps then, it was the Air Force. No, it was the Air Corps then. I had a kind of a introduction to flight by a friend who knew a lot of the big names in flying, and I went to the national air races every year in Cleveland, and saw most of the people that from reading about them over and over and over again, and I really wanted to learn how to fly.
That's great.
Did you begin training with your friend or by yourself?
Well, I don't know how you could say when I was called to service, I went down to can't think of the name of the place now. But at any rate, went down there and we did the usual thing, running and doing push-ups and doing all that jazz. But there wasn't a question of there were people that I knew, some that I had been in college with that were in the group, but most of them were total strangers from all over the country, and you got to know them. I think one of the kind of the craziest things that we did. Most of the guys that came in were smart enough to have their hair cut before they got there. But there are some of them that still had long blonde, and there were 2 or 3 of us that decided we would be a help to them, so we cut their hair. And I don't know how that went, but they looked better to us at the time.
It's probably a smart move.
While training, did you come across any difficulties?
Oh, sure. I'll tell you, one of the things that I probably could have ended my career, at that time we wore heavy leather jackets, with warm lining inside. And when I was going to do my first solo flight in a Stearman, which was a primary trainer, one of the things caught and pushed the control for the elevator control, and when I went down the runway, full power, all of a sudden the plane went up like this, and fortunately I was quick enough to push it forward, but that could have been the end of the road right there. So that was, there's always a little bit something to keep you alert.
This was during training, you said?
During training, yeah.
Wow, interesting. What was your daily routine like when you were training?
Well, what we did, we had an awful lot of groundwork that we had to do. And a lot of it was not stuff that I had really paid a lot of attention to when I was in high school, which I had to try and absorb. But I don't know, it wasn't that difficult. I mean, it was interesting, so that there was always something that was new, and it was fun. I liked it.
That's good. So it got you more prepared and more interested in going into the war,
yeah,
rather than frightened. Yes?
Yes.
Great. That's great. What was your first mission assigned, and when did you first see battle?
The first mission? Golly, I'm not sure that I can remember that, but I do remember, I don't know whether it was on my first one or not, it was one of very early ones. We ended up, we got pretty well shot up, and when we were going to get back to our base and land, and I don't remember what exactly, I can't remember exactly how it happened, but we dropped a bomb on. There was a bomb was still hanging up in the bomb bay. We dropped a bomb on the driveway on the on the landing strip, and it boom 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 down alongside us. But fortunately, it didn't go off. So that was kind of interesting.
That's good. Did you have any fears while up in the air?
Oh, I guess you were always a little frightened of what might happen, but I don't think that was ever much of a real problem. No, I don't think most of the guys that I knew had anywhere near the concern about their well-being as I hear from so many of the people that have gone through the services in the time since I was doing it. I think everybody was there. I mean, you know, I don't know whether we were angry or whatever, but I mean, we were there to do a job. Mm-hmm.
Did you witness any images or scenes that will never be erased from your mind?
Well, maybe if I had time to think about it, I might. But right off the bat, I can't think of one right now.
Did you ever come close or extremely injured, or ever come close to death, or ever experience something very extremely traumatizing?
Oh, sure.
During battle?
Sure. We got shot down. That's not exactly the greatest thing in the world to happen.
How did that end up? Could you explain that moment?
Well, we had started on a mission, and for some reason, and I don't remember what the reason was, but the people that were leading the mission got hit, and I don't know, they bounced up, and we almost rammed them. And but at any rate, they got away, and we went the other way, and by the time we got everything kind of settled back down and on level flight, they were totally gone. And so at that point then we decided that we would go and do what we originally were told that we were going to do, was to drop a bunch of equipment in bundles that would be there for the troops that were coming across the Rhine, and would be there would be paratroopers that came, and airborne troops, and then just regular foot soldiers. So we had medicines and food and everything else in these packets that we had to drop, and they were, I mean, when they were packets, they were pretty big. So we had to get them out, and which we did, and it made the plane 5,000 pounds lighter when we got rid of them. So we were able to get up a little higher than we were and increase our airspeed somewhat, which was all good for us. Yeah, and that saved our bacon. Yeah.
At times that you did drop a bomb from the plane, was there any moment where you were concerned that the bomb wouldn't work or would not start? Did you ever meet any kind of difficulties with the bomb not working?
Yeah, we had one instance where we couldn't get the bombs, two of the bombs out. They wouldn't drop, and I was a co-pilot at that point. And I had to go back into the front of the bomb bay, and one of my guys in the back came and went into the back part of the bomb bay. There was a bomb hanging in each place, and we had to go back and stand on this little narrow thing. I don't remember now. We were 10,000 feet in the air, and try and get these things out. And I can remember very, very specifically thinking, oh my God, if I get this bomb loose, it's going to probably take my toes with it when it goes. But it didn't. I mean, it got out, but the one in the back, the guy couldn't get out, and we finally ended up dropping that bomb on the runway when we went back. But again, it didn't go off. It had been disarmed, so it didn't go off.
How big were these bombs usually?
Usually around 500 pounds.
Oh wow.
You know.
Wow, that's when did you finally? When were you pulled out of battle and out of the war officially?
Not until the war was over.
Not until the war with Japan was over.
Well, the war in Germany was over. Let's say there was still something. I was shipped back to the States and then sent to the West Coast, and we were going to do a lot of flying from the West Coast, but that didn't pan out. That the whole idea just sort of petered out, and we didn't do it.
And then once the war was over, were there any duties left to accomplish after war? Were there any other missions that you had to complete, or any other tasks that need to be done?
Well, I joined the reserves, and I was going and flying fairly regularly at the Cleveland airport, which was fine with me. I loved it. But I wanted to go back to college. And I told him that I couldn't come. He had to go to a meeting once a week. And I couldn't be there because I had to go all the way across the state to go to school, and I couldn't make it back and forth and do it. So they said to you, well, you'll have to resign your commission, which I did. And that was the end. That was really the end of my association with them. I had a lot of things happen before then, but I mean, that was the last part of what I ended up doing.
What college did you go to after you came out of the war?
What college?
Yes.
Miami University in Ohio.
University.
That's where I was when I started.
And what were you studying?
Fine art.
Fine art.
Mm-hmm.
You said in high school you started painting, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to start painting?
I don't know. I think I just felt I had talent.
Did the war affect any of your paintings?
I've done some of various things that happened during the war. Yeah, I matter of fact, there was a show. I was going to say I was going to try and tell you when it was, but I can't remember. But anyhow, there were about 5 or 6 of us, I guess, that all had been in the service, in various services, that had been illustrators or cartoonists or whatever, and we all did stuff, which was a show which was pretty well received and was shown around the country. So yeah, there was always a chance, and then I joined things like the Row 8 and has a group that I belong to. About 3 or 4 different things that I would do paintings and try and sell them. Very hardly ever sold any, though. I mean, it's just like I had somebody come over to the house to bring me Meals on Wheels, and my daughter brought her out. I was in the studio working, and my daughter brought her out to the studio, and she raved. Oh, she loved my paintings. She's going to buy some. And I thought, oh man, I'm really going to hit the jackpot here. Never saw her again.
What did you feel was your most meaningful or favorite piece of artwork?
My very favorite piece of artwork, not mine, but somebody else's.
Well, yours or someone else's, either.
Well, I went to school at the Cleveland Museum of Art for a couple of years, and I got exposed to Degas and you name them. Because I'd go every Saturday, and it was exposure time, really, if nothing else, and it's good. It's good training. Good training.
How about of your own?
Of my own? I mean, what do you mean of my?
Of your own paintings or cartoons, what was your favorite of them all?
I don't know. I guess I don't have a favorite.
Of course. What was the theme sort of your paintings after war really of war, or were they humorous, or was it just kind of?
Well, I made a kind of make a difference, a block. Over here I do cartoons, which I've done for the newspaper and a lot of other things. Over here I do paintings. Now my paintings are representational. I do not necessarily like abstraction or some of what I call the goofy stuff that's being done these days. So that's basically the difference as far as I'm concerned.
I see here you have a book. Would you mind explaining to us what this is? I see it's
it's a book that I wrote. Obviously, for instance, this is one situation where my commanding officer was hit by a German plane and went down, and his deputy, the plane slid from him into the deputy, and both the planes went down. And we were leading the high right squadron and took over after this. So this is pretty important, and I say I remember correctly because there's always a question of where you were standing or sitting or whatever when something happens. The way you describe it may be different than the way I describe it, because I'm in the driver's seat, so to speak.
Yeah.
So at any rate, that's what that's all about. And this actually goes way back to the point when I was a youngster, and I can remember veterans of the Civil War, coming and talking when I was a little kid. Well, not a little kid, but a youngster. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Do you have a few paintings in there you mind showing us and explaining to us?
If I can find them.
That'd be great.
Well, there's one of the things we were talking. I guess we were talking about it back there. That's a GB. That plane was something that I saw fly. I saw Jimmy Doolittle fly that in the air races in Cleveland. That has nothing to do with the painting, but it just opened. That's where it came from.
Did you ever fly that specific plane?
No.
No?
No, I don't think I'd want to fly that plane
really?
either.
Was it a dangerous plane?
Well, yeah, and it was very high powered. For the little, thing that it is. Incidentally, not to stop, but there's a question of, there's the bomb bay where I mentioned that we had to get rid of the bombs, and you can see this thing here. You can see how big it is. This is where I was concerned about the bombs dropping and taking my toes with it.
Right, yes.
Now, let's see. Well, you wanted to see a painting. Let's see if I can find it.
Yes. A painting or cartoon, anything of your preference.
Well, I can. Let's see. Let's stay with the painting first and see if I can find one.
While you're looking, on average, how long did it take to put together a painting or draw out a cartoon? Were you very tedious through your work, or just kind of it came naturally?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's easy for me. I think. But funny that you should particularly mention, because I haven't been making any paintings lately because I've been working on some cartoons, and I decided I better start doing a serious painting. And I started, and I spent one day, and I thought, ugh, it isn't working. But I went back again the next day, and I repainted parts of it, and it still didn't work. Now it's at home, and I'm going to put it in the fire.
Do you have a painting?
Oh, that's right. It's
No worries.
hard for me to keep on track.
No worries.
Let's see. I don't know. There's in here. If you want, afterwards, if you want, I'll go through and see if I can pick them out.
Did you prefer painting versus drawing out cartoons, or?
Well, it's easier for me to draw cartoons. No question about that.
Right.
Yeah. That's pretty much always been that way.
Are you working on anything right now at the moment, or have you not continued on?
Well, I've got some things that I am doing for a show that's coming up, which is going to be a fundraiser. And what they want are simple, small things that can be sold, at a really small price. And one of the things that I'm doing for them is I'm making some cartoons, color cartoons, and that'll always be all right. Here, I didn't get to this, but that's where we were after we shot down. Kind of made a mess of the airplane, but we all got out of it.
Wow. Yeah, it looks very destroyed and very catastrophic.
There's a painting. That's the plane that I went down in.
It's a very large plane. How big was the plane?
Well, B-24. Well, as you can see, it has 4 engines. I don't really remember what the power would have been, but the only thing I can there's been a big thing going on for years and years and years between the people that flew B-17s and the people that flew B-24s. Now, I flew both, so I feel like I have some kind of a feel for it. There were more B-24s built during World War II than any other aircraft in that time. And the reason was that it was faster and it could carry a heavier bomb load. So, at any rate, that's that part of it.
How many men were usually on one plane?
10.
Did each of you have a specific job to
Oh,
fill?
definitely, yeah, absolutely. The guys in the back of the plane were mainly gunners. Now, we had a top turret gunner, we had guns in the nose of the plane, and then we had at the very last, the tail end of the plane, and then there were gunner windows in the back, and so there were a gunner on each side there. So there was a lot of firepower. Yeah.
What do you believe was the most important role on the plane, rather than the pilot?
I would never say that.
No, everybody worked.
Everybody better be working together.
Right.
Yeah.
Good, that's good. Of course, everybody has to work in a unit in order to complete a task of some sort.
Yeah.
Did you have a preference did you work in each position on the plane, or were you always the co-pilot? Or?
No, I was, well, You did both. I mean, once you're into pilot training, that's all you're really going to do is pilot.
Right.
And you did it both ways. I mean, I'd sit in the left seat when I was being instructed, and I'd almost always end up in the right seat, the co-pilot seat, when I was on a mission. But that's the way it was.
Did you have a preference as to which plane you flew or were in?
Well, I probably would, if I'd had my druthers, I would have probably liked to have been in a B-25. But on the other hand, one of my buddies, he was in a B-25, and just before we were going to graduate, he crashed it on takeoff into another plane, which had been given permission to take off, and they crossed, and he was killed. Never saw him again. Yeah.
Did you work together? Did you train together and grow up together?
Yeah, but not at that point. He at that point had gone to another advanced training spot then the one that I went to. So, yeah.
Tell us more about your book. What inspired you to write a book?
Well, I guess in a way, it started out that I wanted to just have a record for my kids.
Right.
It's pretty hard to know what you did or they did unless it's put down in writing somewhere, and that's really what I did it for. In my case, my family goes back to the early days of us being the United States. Okay, let's put it that way. And although most of my family came from England or Scotland or Ireland, an awful lot of them ended up in the United States, which were not united at that point. I mean, and they were in the French and Indian wars. They were, they were involved in all of the different wars. And I try to describe that. Now, incidentally, I have my youngest son is he's unbelievable as far as he can go after and find out who these people were and what they did and where they came from. And there's a lot of stuff in the book about fighting with the Indians. I mean, I think it's a pretty good historical piece. Let's put it that way.
It's very interesting. I did not know that you wrote a book, but it's a good point to put your mark in history through this writing.
Yeah.
It's something to guide through to show your children. You married and have children when did you?
Yeah. Well, when I came back and I was released out in Indiana, I called some of my buddies, my fraternity brothers at Miami, and said that I was coming back for the Miami Notre Dame game, and would they get me a date? And they did, and that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. And Bea and I, my wife and I, we had 3 sons and 2 daughters. Unfortunately, one of the sons was killed. but the rest of them are, are still around. Matter of fact, 2 of them are off doing a cruise right now. My oldest daughter and youngest daughter are on a cruise, although I guess they're due to be back tomorrow.
I'm sorry, but unfortunately we are out of time, but thank you so much.
Oh my golly, so
soon.
soon.
I know, it's
It was
time
very
flies.
nice meeting you.
Yes, it was very nice to meet you. Thank you so
Good.
much for the interview.
Thank you.